Good evening. I want to just talk about Daniel. We can read about the life of Daniel in his own writings in, obviously, the book of Daniel, but also in Ezekiel 14:14, 20, and 28:23. There are some striking similarities between the life of Daniel and that of Jacob's son Joseph. Both of them prospered in foreign lands after interpreting dreams for their rulers, and both Daniel and Joseph were elevated to high office as a result of their faithfulness to God. After Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had besieged Jerusalem, he chose noble men from Israel's royal household who were handsome and showed an aptitude for learning to be trained in the ways of Babylonians. After their approximately 3 years of training, they would be put into the king's service. Daniel, whose name means God is my judge, and his 3 countrymen from Judea were chosen and given the new names. Daniel became Belteshazzar, while Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah became Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The Babylonians most likely gave them new names that were completely disassociated with their Hebrew roots to hasten Daniel and his friends' assimilation into the Babylonian culture, which at the time, it was just, their culture was nothing but to do about the king's absolute rule over heavens and earth and all their idol worshiping. Daniel and his compatriots proved to be the wisest of all the trainees, much more wiser than Nebuchadnezzar could have ever imagined. And at the end of their training, they entered the service of the king. Daniel's first sign of faithfulness to God was when he and his 3 friends rejected the rich food and wine from the king's table because they deemed it a defilement, and as such they became vegetarians. As their health improved, they were permitted to continue with their chosen diet. In their education, the 4 men from Judah became knowledgeable in all Babylonian matters, their laws, their customs, their language. And Daniel was given by God the ability to understand dreams and visions of all kind. And when you read Daniel 1:17, it says, "As for these 4 youths, God gave them learning and skill in all literature and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams." In the 2nd year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar was troubled with a dream he could not interpret. Beyond interpretation, Nebuchadnezzar commanded his magicians and enchanters, sorcerers and astrologers to also describe his dream. These men were willing to try to interpret the dream if Nebuchadnezzar first told them what the dream was. But they said that revealing the dream itself was an impossible task for a human. The king decreed that all the wise men, including Daniel and his companions, must be put to death. However, after Daniel sought God in prayer, the mystery of the king's dream was revealed to Daniel, and he was taken to the king to interpret it. Daniel immediately attributed his ability to interpret dreams to the one true God. The key feature of the dream was that one day there would be a kingdom set up by God that will last forever, and that God's kingdom will destroy all previous man-made kingdoms. For his wisdom, Daniel was honored by King Nebuchadnezzar and placed in authority over all the wise men of Babylon. At Daniel's request, his 3 countrymen were also placed in positions of authority as administrators. Later, King Nebuchadnezzar had another dream, and again, Daniel was able to interpret it. The king acknowledged that Daniel had the spirit of his holy God within him. Daniel's interpretation of the dream was correct. After experiencing a period of insanity, Nebuchadnezzar was restored to health, and he praised and honored Daniel's God as the Most High. Now, Nebuchadnezzar's son, Belshazzar, became the new king, and during a banquet, he ordered the gold and silver goblets that had been stolen from the holy temple in Jerusalem to be brought out for use, to act as cups for his wine. In response to the defilement of such holy items, Belshazzar sees a hand writing on the wall. Actually, according to the Bible, it was a finger that was writing, and then this language, these words appeared. His astrologers, after reading, were unable to assist him in translating what had been written. And so Daniel was called upon to interpret the writing. As a reward for interpreting the writing, which basically, if you read Daniel 5:13-16, says, "Then Daniel was brought before the king. The king answered and said to Daniel, 'You are that Daniel, one of the exiles of Judah, whom the king my father brought from Judah. I had heard of you that the spirit of the gods is in you.'" As a reward for interpreting the writing, Daniel is promoted by King Belshazzar to the 3rd highest position in the Babylonian kingdom. That night, as Daniel had prophesied, the king was slain in battle, and his kingdom was taken over by the Persian Cyrus the Great. And the first Darius of the Mede was made king. I think that's interesting because eventually another Darius was defeated by Alexander the Great. And I think it was 306 BC. Something around there anyway. Under the new ruler, Daniel excelled in his duties as one of the administrators to such a degree that King Darius was contemplating making him head over all the kingdom, much like Joseph had been made. This infuriated the other administrators who were jealous of Daniel and his success. This infuriated them so much that they looked for a way to bring Daniel down. They couldn't find any wrongdoing on Daniel's part, so they focused on the matter of Daniel's religion, his weak spot, or Achilles' heel. Using flattery, the administrators coaxed Darius into issuing a decree forbidding prayers to any god other than the king for the next 30 days. The penalty for disobedience was to be thrown into a den of lions and subsequently being ripped apart and eaten alive. Daniel disobeyed the edict, of course, and continued to pray openly to the true God. And what I take from that, as you should, is that Man should not bend knee to another man, only to the one God. As Daniel made no attempt to hide his activity, he was seen praying and arrested, with much regret, the king gave the order for Daniel to be thrown into the den, but not without a prayer that Daniel's God would rescue him. Darius said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." The next day, when Daniel was found alive and well, he told the king that God had sent an angel to shut the lion's mouth so that he had remained unharmed. The miracle resulted in King Darius sending out a decree that all his subjects were to worship the God of Daniel. And throughout King Darius's reign, Daniel continued to prosper. And what you can take from that is that through Daniel's actions and his non-ceasing faith, his sole faith in God, the only God there is, and his faith, he was not only protected, but those actions showed Darius that this in fact was the God, and sent out this decree for everyone to worship Daniel's God. This is how God brings good things about, through his actors that are on earth. Through our good actions, we show that God is God and we are only man. During Daniel's time as administrator over everyone, he prophesied a number of things, a broad range of human history. He predicted the rise and the fall of the Greek and Roman empires long before they happened, and the rise of a powerful king who will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god and will say unheard of things against the God of God. Daniel's 70 weeks prophecy spoke of a Messiah who would be killed. He was speaking of Jesus. The remainder of the prophecy, the 70th week, will be fulfilled in the end times, the book of Revelations. Daniel had other apocalyptic visions as well, and understanding his prophecies is very important. We must know our history to know our end. During Daniel's time, he exercised not only great integrity and faith in God, and in doing so received the respect and affection of the powerful rulers that he served. His honesty and loyalty to his masters never led him to compromise his faith in the one true God. Rather than it being an obstacle to his success, Daniel's continued devotion to God brought him the admiration of the unbelievers in his circle. And when delivering his interpretations, he was quick to give God the credit for his ability to do so. Again, all glory goes to God. Daniel's integrity as a man of God gained him favor with the secular world Yet he refused to compromise his faith in God, regardless of all the titles he had been given, regardless of anything, his great robes that he would wear, gold, whatever, a chariot. None of that factored in to pulling Daniel back from God. As a matter of fact, it made his strength and faith in God even more. Even under the intimidation of kings and rulers, Daniel remained steadfast in his commitment to the one God. Daniel teaches us that no matter whom we are dealing with, no matter what their status is, that we are to treat them with compassion. We see how concerned Daniel was when he was delivering the interpretation to Nebuchadnezzar's second dream. As Christians, we are called to obey the rulers and authorities that God has put in place, treating them with respect and compassion. However, as we see from Daniel's example, obeying God's law must always take precedence over obeying men. God's law comes first. God always comes first before men and mankind. As a result of Daniel's devotion, Daniel found favor with man and with God. Notice also in those verses what the angel Gabriel told Daniel about how swiftly the answer to his prayer was dispatched. This shows us how ready the Lord is to hear the prayers of his people. Daniel's strength lay in his devotion to prayer, and his strength and his faith in God above all things. Let that be a lesson for us. It is not just in bad times that we look to God through prayer, but we must do so on a daily basis. We must come to God in prayer on a daily basis, so we know God as God knows us. In Jesus Christ's name, God bless you. Good day.